What's good, y'all? Riley Beats here, and today we're going to be going through a little basic music theory crash course. Talked about this video a little bit in the community posts. But pretty much, we're going to be covering most of what is taught in a first-year university music theory course. Since I assume most of y'all are producers like me, skipping over all the boring notation and sheet music specific stuff. As well, since it's been a while since I took my first-year music theory course, I referred to a few syllabuses online to make sure I've covered everything. So if you could leave a like, comment, and subscribe, I would greatly appreciate that. Community would greatly appreciate that. And you would greatly appreciate that, because it might just lead to more videos like this being created. You never know, but there's only one way to find out. So let's get right into it. First, we have to start off with some basics just to lay some groundwork for the rest of what we're going to be talking about. First things first, we have whole steps and half steps. A half step is just the distance between two notes that are side by side on the piano. So for example, the B and the C are just a half step apart. And a whole step would be notes that have a note between them. For example, the A and the B here, there's the A sharp in between these two notes, so there's a whole step distance here. This gets applied to scales. Your typical minor scale is made up of a whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, half step, whole step, whole step. The major scale, on the other hand, is made up of a whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. Graphics make it a lot easier to understand as well. We won't dive too deep into different modes, but we will touch on some basics. So in A minor, a scale of all white keys where the 7th note is G, to make this a harmonic minor scale, we would raise the G to a G sharp. The melodic minor mode is also pretty simple. It's also pretty similar, but instead of just raising the 7th, we raise the 6th as well. So a melodic minor would take the F and the G of A minor and turn those into F sharp and G sharp respectively. For more on scales, I have a video about scale degrees that takes this a step further that you can check out in the description down below. As well, I have a video about syncopation, which is another pretty simple music theory concept that will also be in the description down below for you to check out. Typical triads, or chords as they're commonly referred to, are three notes where there is a scalar note skipped between each of the notes. So the C major triad is made up of C, E, and G in the scale of C major. This would be skipping over the D between the C and E, and the F between E and G. For more about chords such as sevenths, ninths, inversions, and more, you can check out my video about chords that will be linked in the description below. So as you can see here, we're skipping the D, skipping the F. So contrary motion is a pretty simple concept, so we're just going to cover it now. Essentially, you have two sections moving in opposite directions. So for example, when one note goes down, the note contrary to it will move up. So for example, we go from the C sharp to the C here, so that's going downwards by a half step. And on the other hand, we have a G going to the G sharp, which is moving up by a half step. And the rest is also contrary motions. So from chords, we have voice leadings, and essentially this is how individual voices or notes move from chord to chord. And theoretically, the best voice leading occurs when all individual voices move smoothly. Smooth voice leadings are maintained by a few principles that are as follows. So the first principle that we're going to cover is just keeping common tones. So here I have an F minor going to a D sharp major, and just keep common tone. I took the 5th of the first chord and kept it the same in the next chord here. Next principle is you want to move things by step, so you want to keep them fairly close together. So these notes are just moving by a half step, so they're pretty close together. If it's not possible to move them by a step, move them by the smallest possible interval. And finally, you want to incorporate some contrary motion. That's just how you get the smoothest voice leadings. So next we have non-chord tones, which is basically just a note being played that is not part of the implied or expressed chord. This contrasts chord tones, which, as you guessed it, are notes played that are part of the chord. Non-chord tones can create dissonance and tension, and when related to jazz music theory, can play a role in implying a different chord. So, for example, we have the F minor chord here again. So here we can see the G is not part of the chord here because there is the G sharp. This will create some dissonance between the G sharp and the G. And here we have this being a chord tone as it is part of the chord here. Here's an example of voice leadings. And so hypothetically, if I were to just leave this as the regular triad, so I just bring this down here, it still sounds pretty smooth because, again, the notes are just a step apart, but it sounds a bit more smooth with the common tone here. This pretty much wraps up the basics from the theoretical side of things. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any other topics you want me to cover, just let me know in the comments down below. Thank you all for watching. Peace.